and I'm from Lowell High School. And this is Arnie DeLoof. He served in the Korean War as a fireman. And on the camera are Corey Hagerman and Nick Gerkink. The set designer is Brittany Rose. And Arnie DeLoof currently lives at 11381 Ann Street in Key Heights. Can you describe your early childhood?
Yes, a little bit. I was born on a little farm in Ada Township in Michigan, 60-acre farm. My mother and father, 7 siblings, and I had a good childhood. I remember mostly it was during I grew up until I was 10 or 11 during World War II. So that type of thing was on everybody's mind at the time, you know. So mostly the things I remember was about what was going on in World War II. Otherwise, my child, it wasn't really exciting. I went to a little one-room country school, 30 kids at the most, and we played a lot of sandlot, softball, and touch football, stuff like that. Ice skated on ponds in the wintertime. We had a lot of fun without any money. Hardly anybody had any money in those days, but so I didn't feel poor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much education did you receive?
10th grade.
Just 10th grade. Do you wish you would have fully completed high school?
Yes, I do. I wished I would have completed high school because I missed out on a lot of things.
What did your parents do in the household?
Well, I lost my father when I was 9. So my mother she worked at General Motors in Grand Rapids after that, and really I really don't remember a lot about them being together either, because of the kid 9 years old. You don't. But I had a good life. I can't say I had a bad life, but I just don't remember everything about it because my father wasn't there, I guess, and that does make a hardship on a person. But my grandmother, my mother's mother, always lived at our house after that, and she kind of took care of the kids. You know, I had, like I say, I had at that time probably 6 brothers and sisters around, you know. Yeah, but we lived pretty good.
What was your role in the family?
Oh, I was just a kid. Yeah, I was just a kid. When I got a little older, I went to work. I got different jobs cutting lawns, and I used to work for different farmers, hauling hay. And when I was 16, I got my first real job in a furniture factory. I worked there a while, and I had a couple of different jobs before I went to the service. Okay.
Did you have a girlfriend before you left for the war?
Yeah. She, when she found out I was enlisted in the service, she said goodbye. You know, she wanted a boyfriend that was around here. So, yeah, so lost out on that deal. But there were more girls around. Yeah, she wasn't the only face in the lake.
Do you recall any stories from your childhood that stick out?
Stories? Like what?
Any unusual stories, any humorous stories?
Yeah. I can't think of one right now, but
that's fine.
Yeah, I'll get around to one pretty soon.
Right. Yeah. You enlisted, correct?
Right.
Why did you decide to enlist?
Well, I didn't have a job. It was for a job more than anything. I was 17 years old and wanted to go and see the world. Yeah, I went to Texas, and that was the world that I saw, Texas. And then Mississippi.
What was basic training like?
Well, really wasn't so bad. I mean, we marched a lot up and down the road in the hot summertime. We didn't have the Air Force didn't do that. I don't know if they do it now or not, but at that time, you didn't get training on hand-to-hand combat and things like that, because the Air Force doesn't do hand-to-hand combat with anybody. Our job was to keep airplanes in the air. So, what my basic training amounted to mostly was just they teach you how to come and go in a military manner. Just be a military person, you know. And then that's about it. Yeah.
What was your job in the Air Force?
I was a fireman. When I first went, after basic, I started to go to school to be a cook. I was going to cook school. And I didn't want to be a cook very bad, so I kept asking for transfers. Finally, I got transferred from the cook school to a supply room, a squadron supply room, and I stayed there for 6 or 8 months. And for some reason, I didn't ask for the next transfer. They put me in the fire department, and I stayed there the rest of my career.
Were there any difficulties with your job?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had difficulties from time to time. You mean difficulties like what? Like
any problems on a day-to-day basis, or?
No. But the job, the job was there for difficult situations,
sure,
for airplanes crashing and buildings burning and stuff like that. The department I was in, we did both. You know, we had structural fires and aircraft fires both,
okay, and
gasoline fires and stuff like that.
Do you recall any major accidents or?
A major fire?
Yeah.
Yeah. One in Greenland was, we called it a tank farm. They were big, huge fuel tanks. They probably held 6,000 gallons apiece. And there was probably, I don't remember, probably 12 of them. I do have pictures of it in my album, but I don't have them right now. I told you my daughter had. So it took us a day and a night. Actually, this thing started in the night, say 5 o'clock at night. And it took us till the following morning to get everything out and get the area secured and safe. You know?
Wow.
But they lost all that fuel.
Yeah.
Okay.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Wrote letters. Yeah. That was, they didn't have these, there wasn't any computers or anything like that at that time. That's the only way, except by telephone. You could radio. I forget exactly how it went, but there was a guy in New York State somewhere that had a radio, and he did this for the military personnel only. You could radio him, and he would call anywhere in the United States where your family was, and you could talk to your family. That was pretty neat, and he got awards and stuff for doing that, because he did a good job. He was good at it, you know, because Christmas time and your birthday and holidays is when you mostly want to talk to your family.
Sure. And
he made sure that got done. So,
did you keep in touch with any friends back home, or was it mostly just your family?
Mostly my family, yeah. Because my friends all did what I did. They went to the service.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. Once in a while, I'd get a letter from somebody that I'd hung around with back home, and get a letter from, maybe they were in California or Japan, or hard to tell. A little bit of that, yeah.
What did you do for entertainment in Greenland?
Oh, on weekends, one of the chow halls, mess halls, they would turn it into a club. You'd go up there and drink beer if you wanted to. It was also gambling. It was like a casino. You could play cards there. You could gamble there. they had a roulette wheel. You could play roulette. And just different kind of gambling things, you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't get involved in that. I never gambled in that thing. I gambled a little bit, but not there. But otherwise, entertainment wasn't. There isn't much entertainment there. That what you know. They did have if I remember right, they did have a bowling alley on the base. A couple lanes you could go and bowl. Ping pong tables, and they had sort of a gymnasium building there where they had tennis and stuff. So there was things to do. Okay.
What were the natives like?
There was no natives around there.
Oh, really?
No. When they built the air base, that was originally was a Eskimo village,
Okay.
and they moved the Eskimo village. United States government did this. They moved that village like 100 miles north, up the coast, and took all the Eskimos up there. So if we saw them, they didn't want us to affiliate with them, because if you talked to one of them and you had a cold, he would not only get your cold, but he had no resistance to anything like that, and he'd get pneumonia and die. So they just told us to stay away from the Eskimos.
Wow.
But once in a while, we did see them come on their dog sleds. That's the only, but we didn't have contact with them that much.
I see. How did you feel about other soldiers or other officers that you knew?
Well, they all had a job to do the same as I did. And some of them were good and some of them were bad. But you make of things like that what you want to. You make of it, you know, what's necessary. So it was, everybody got along good. It was all right.
Did you make any friends?
Yeah. You mean that I've kept over the years?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, I did. One lives in Baton Rouge. One lives in Iowa. I contact the one in Baton Rouge a lot. I see them. In fact, my wife and I, we go to their house probably once a year. And since we've been going, we spend our winters in Texas, and they're sort of on our way home, so we stop there for a couple of days, usually on the way home, visit with them, have a good time. Yeah, the guy was kind of like my brother, you know, special friend. Yeah.
In your opinion, did it make service less lonely, a little easier to have friends up there?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
What did you do after service ended?
Well, of course, I came home, and my first job I worked for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company in Grand Rapids in a tire store. I installed tires, and I also recapped. And at that time, they were taking old tires, they'd buff all the old rubber off and put new rubber on them. Recaps, they called them. They still do it, I guess. But that was about my first job when I got out of the service.
So were you just discharged then?
Except, well, my active military was done then, but I still had 4 years reserves. But I didn't have to go to any reserve meetings or anything like that. I just had to let them know where I was, you know, in case they wanted to call me in. They call it standby. You know, there's active reserves and inactive reserves. Standby, there's about 4 or 5 different categories. So I never had to do anything except let them know where I was. And I wasn't very good at that all the time either. Okay.
Did you enter the workforce after you got back?
Yep, right away. I was only off work about less than a week. Okay.
What kind of jobs did you hold?
Well, like I said, I worked at the tire place. I worked in a paper mill for a while. A gas station. I worked in a car dealership. Used to be McQueen Motor Company in Lowell. Any of you guys ever heard of McQueen's before? Mm-hmm. Okay. By the way, the Croft family kind of owned that too. A different Croft family.
Right.
Yeah. And then I bought my own gas station. It was the same one I'd worked in. It was my father-in-law ran it. And I ran it for 15 or 16 years. And then I closed it and I started driving truck. I went to Cross Orchards and then I went to, it's Lighthouse now.
Yeah.
It was Jet Lee Farms. I worked there for 16 years until I retired.
Wow. Any stories that you recall? Any stories from the service or afterwards that you'd like to share?
Well, like what? You mean like I never was in anywhere there was any shooting or anything going on.
Any humorous stories?
Yeah. I guess I told you about this taxi driver dropping us off in the country. That's one thing that sticks out in my mind, but there was other things that happened too. He told us that they'd serve us out there, and he drove us way out, like probably 12 miles out in the country. It seemed like 50 when we walked back. Told us we could get a beer there. My friend turned 21 that day, but I was only 20. And we get out there, and this was at New Brunswick, New Jersey. And the guy in the gin mill said, no, you have to be 21 to drink here. So we started hitchhiking back, and we couldn't get a ride. We walked for a long ways, you know.
Yeah.
And we did go and find the taxi driver and talk to him a little bit.
Wow.
But, you know, probably it was a good thing we didn't find anything. We probably got in trouble. Okay.
Sure.
Stop for just a sec. So.
Did you join any veteran organizations?
No, I didn't. No, I wasn't eligible for the VFW, so I just didn't bother with it anymore. Okay.
Why weren't you eligible?
Well, the VFW means, of course, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and you had to be in a war zone where there was a war going on. And even if you were, in some circumstances, right where the worst part of a war was going on, the Korean War wasn't a declared war. See, it was called a police action. So a lot of the people that was in the Korean War wasn't eligible to belong to the veterans of the foreign war because it wasn't a foreign war. Same way with Vietnam, and maybe this one that's going on now. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I think they've changed their rules about it quite a bit because they weren't getting people to join up. See, they were running out of VFW people.
If you had the choice, would you do it over again?
You mean the service business?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. It wasn't that bad, you know. I learned a lot of things, found out a lot of things. Saw stuff I probably wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Sure. All right. Anything you'd like to add?
No, guess not. I guess not.
Well, thanks a lot for doing this interview.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The following oral military history project is a series of documentaries in association with the Lowell area men and women who proudly served and sacrificed part of their lives to preserve the opportunities for all of us to build our businesses and raise our families under a blanket of freedom. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.